Everybody loves a list. I know I do, and you do too. Top 5 edges you're not using. Let's go. All right, so there are a few prerequisites for this list. So number 1, they can't be in the Suede book. If it's in the Suede book, you're probably already using it. This is limited to Pinnacle only products, so this is going to exclude things like Interface 0. I may do third party in another video depending on how this is received. I want to avoid anything that's redundant. There are some things that are already covered in Suede that are also really cool in other settings. I'm gonna avoid them if it's just the same thing reskinned. And lastly, mechanically and thematically, it should be fun. All right, let's hit this list. So number 1, we're gonna start with one of the edges from one of my favorite settings, Rifts. That's going to be the combo of Charge and Overrun. This is gonna be a twofer because they kind of play into each other. One leads to the next. It's kind of like an improved version, like improved counterattack. So with Charge right out the gate, you're going to ignore the -2 penalty after making a run action. This is really cool for any of your characters that like to leap before they look. They just really like to jump into the action, especially if, depending on the setting, maybe them getting hurt actually benefits them in some way. Maybe they have counterattack, maybe they want all the attention to be on them. Maybe they're almost like a taunting tank, a berserker if you will, just running headlong into battle. Everybody hit me! And then next, we have Overrun. Overrun, I believe, is veteran, and Charge is a requirement for Overrun. So if you moved 1 inch beyond your normal pace, and under most circumstances if you're running that would be the case, right, because the minimum you can roll on the d6 or d8 is a 1, you're going to add an additional 2 damage to your attack. And this is for a melee attack, obviously. Here's where things get really crazy. If they get shaken, they're knocked prone. So paint the picture here. This is where I'm seeing like the berserker with 2 axes just sprinting first into battle. And you know how you have that clashing scene where like 2 armies kind of run together? Well, this person is going to be amazing at it because the first person they leap on, they're getting knocked down. And that's getting knocked down is rarely good. Next, we're going to jump into Team Leader, which this is actually in the Supers Companion. It's worth noting that the Supers Companion is in the process of getting redone as we speak. But until then, I'm going to use this. So what's neat about this is the leader for a support role can actually be determined after the role. Normally it would be determined beforehand. And I don't know if you've ever been in a party or a group where people are deciding to help each other, and they're usually deciding this based on how high the die type is for that person. Well, Savage Worlds, crazy shit happens. There's exploding dice, and the better you are at something just means that there's a chance that you could do better. There's always the chance that somebody that is untrained in the thing, assuming that they can even do it. I don't expect an untrained pilot to be able to just like fly an F-16. But there's almost always these moments where somebody who you expect to be shit at something ends up being amazing. And all the players look at each other after and they say, huh, I should have supported you. With Team Leader in the mix, that is no longer a problem, because then you just flip it. This next one is near and dear to my heart. This is a little bit more, there's a little bit more description in this, but it's awesome. This is old school. This is coming out of Solomon Kane, and this is Flesh. Yes, I did have to Google how to say that based on the way it is spelled. It's flesh, no matter how badly you want to say fleshy. This is really fun. You get your Naruto run-in, and you kind of, you're running towards the target. Requirement number 1, you have to move at least 2 inches. It also has to be in a straight line. This then allows you to hit the enemy and keep moving. The important part to mention is they don't get the free attack. So you're essentially running, sprinting, ninja samurai style. You got your sword, dagger, katana out. I know what you're thinking. This would be hard with a katana. Dagger, and basically you run by them, you slice them and you keep moving and they can't hit you back. So this is really good for those characters that are trying to be dodgy and they don't really want to get locked down in combat. You can actually hit the target, keep moving. It's worth noting though that if there are enemies surrounding your target, they will still get a free attack. So you might want some additional edges to help you with those situations. Evade, I believe, is what you're looking for. So in that first example, you know how we were talking about somebody who maybe wants to get hurt? Well, that's this character here in this new world of Deadlands. I'm not 100% sure if this was in the old Deadlands, but it's definitely in Lost Colony as well as Weird West. It's called Don't Get 'Em Riled. So what's great about this is that, let's say you've taken wounds. Just because you're that guy. You ran into battle and you're trying to take all the hits so your other party members can do crazy stuff. It's your job. You take it on proudly. It's honest work. So you've got wounds. Let's say you've got 2 wounds. You're then going to add the amount of wounds you have to your melee damage. You start throwing this in there with things like first strike, counterattack. I believe this is legendary, but there's another edge where you can get additional wounds before you actually get incapacitated. This is crazy fun, crazy good. One of those classic like Reaver style tanks where they're kind of taking the damage and flipping it back on you. Really cool, really fun. It's almost like a centerpiece. You have that edge, you can kind of build your character around that, which is great. Last but not least, we're going to jump into Weird Wars Rome. This one is Shield Wall. With this, assuming you have a shield, you get to add +1 parry to each adjacent ally. It does max out at +2 if you have 2 people that are doing the same thing, which in Weird Wars Rome kind of makes sense. A lot of phalanxes and testudos in that time. So yeah, you're kind of dependent on the person next to you, but for gameplay, it maxes out at +2. It's really cool, really fun. I know it is a bit niche, but I'm sure you could very easily take this edge and any of these other edges and very easily reskin them to work in your game. For example, battle comes up in very few games, but there's a whole section, a whole leadership section with some really cool support stuff there. There's not going to be a whole lot of mass battles in ETU, but did we make it work for my player? Absolutely. They're a musician. They inspire. It's like borderline barding stuff. If you somehow manage to make it to my channel before stopping by the GM table with Bobby, feel free to check him out. There's a lot of things that it may seem like I'm not covering that probably should be covered in Savage Worlds. Bobby already handled it. Even some of the stuff that I am talking about, I'm trying not to completely overlap with some of the stuff he's already done. He's got some great content over there. Not that he needs my stamp of approval by any stretch of the imagination, but I just want to make sure that you have all the information you need to get everything you need for Savage Worlds. Highly recommend his crash course. I'm going to throw a link down so you can take a look at the GM table with Bobby down below. Really helps with rules and stuff. And he also talks about savaging certain settings like Mandalorian, which is super cool. Let me know down in the comments below, are there any other edges you think I missed? Anything else worth noting? Anything you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about the edges that I just talked about? How wrong was I? Am I out of line? I want to know. This is Glenniford signing out. How's that make you feel?